It's TJ. Just wanted to take a special moment to thank all of you who have subscribed and all of you who have commented. You've provided some valuable insight and some interesting topics for discussion. So keep it up, and if you have not subscribed, please click the button below and subscribe, and leave your comments too. Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It is TJ, your host, and this is part 3 in the Narcissist Bag of Tricks discussion of mind control. For this series, I have been referencing Thomas Sheridan's lovely book, Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath, which is recommended, by the way. We've been covering some of the examples of mind control situations, which I also call manipulation or mind games. The next on the list, the next example from Protective Overlords. And this one's kind of interesting because it talks about the present world that we live in, and it says that you've been made to believe by the media and the politicians that a certain ethnic or religious tradition is behind all terrorist activities, fake ISIS, Muslim, crap, lies, and this has to result in increased security for all. Sick. One day, you're waiting with your family to board your flight, and you find out you've got to walk through some kind of full-body scanner, which reveals your nakedness to the security staff. There you are, dressed up fully in clothes, and you're being seen nude by strangers that aren't even pretty, as well as your wife and your 9-year-old daughter. They get to see you in your birthday suit. Then you happen to notice that 2 women that are dressed in traditional religious wear of the so-called Muslim terrorist background, they're allowed to bypass the naked nude scanner on account of religious sensitivities. You can't understand what's going on. The politicians are treating you and your family like terrorists, yet the ones who they tell you are the most likely to be terrorists are excluded from these demeaning and invasive security requirements. Your psychology has been shattered, filled with fear, confused and bewildered, that eventually you succumb to all kinds of social and personal restrictions, ultimately believing that you and your little family are the real potential terrorists and need to be protected from yourselves. The innocent members of the so-called terrorist Muslim profile group are further subjected to media and political stigma, bigotry by the same foolish, retarded politicians and pundits who defend their right to not pass through the naked body scanner. It doesn't make any sense on any kind of level, and it's not meant to. It's gaslighting inflicted on all of society by psychopathic government and media. Now, these creatures, cluster B monsters, will not flinch from gaslighting their victims in order to get what they want, which is your absolute psychological, sexual, emotional, and financial submission to them. Upon gaining this domination, this creature will eventually discard you and walk away as if you never existed. You'll be left a shattered husk of your former self, wondering who you are now and what happened to the person you used to be. Well, Thomas Sheridan tells us that there's hope. The thing they can never take from you is your spirit. That's not for negotiation, even if this creature made you think so at the time. The next section in this chapter 6 is regarding something I have covered, psychopaths and bullying. And he tells us that one of the most common misconceptions relating to the pathological monsters is that deep down, They're filled with self-loathing, and they project their inner hatred on themselves onto others and their victims. Nothing could be further from the truth. To imply this is to suggest that these creatures are somehow self-reflective, which we've covered. They're not. What's being classified as self-loathing is in reality more akin to resentment and jealousy. They don't feel inferior to others who enjoy relationships, social lives, careers, and material goods. They just want to take those things away from these victims for the sake of a sick game of one-upmanship, destroying another person's life for a brief rush of energy or supply. Which sounds disgusting, to think that you would spend your time voluntarily with a person who wants to cause destruction. This resentment, he says, is most commonly seen when these creatures bully other adults. They start it probably in grade school and continue to do so for the rest of their lives. Bullying pays off for these creatures on many levels towards their social and employment ambitions. Although these monsters will implement a smear campaign against another person at work or at an organization in order to take over the person's position, the underlying thrust is that it is the position the victim holds that the creature finds desirable. If it leads to the bullied victim resigning, transferring to a different department, or even suicide, then so be it. Neuroscientists have established that the human brain continues to grow and change long after the rapid development stage of young childhood. It's now well established that people who have been bullied as children by a psychopathic creature, parent, student, school, or even adult at work, are much more likely to be depressed, anxious, and suicidal. The psychological torment that victims of bullying experience is emotionally ravaging and visceral. Sheridan tells us that bullying's now been shown to leave a lasting effect on a young person at a time when their brain's still developing, actually leading to reduced electrical connectivity with the brain, as well as destroying the growth of new neurons. This very real neurological damage is identical to what's seen in those who have been physically and sexually abused in childhood. The last section of Chapter 6, Thomas Sheridan tells us that another aspect of the bullying of which these monsters uses to deflect their shortcomings onto their victim is the silent treatment. It's very common among these creatures who specialize in taking control of small social groups as a kind of ringleader of pathetic individuals, which this creature then manipulates by playing on their vast array of insecurities and low intelligence. This creature will then cultivate these individuals into proto-psychopaths in order to socially banish the targeted individual. This sadistic agenda was very popular with British and Irish trade unions in the 60s and 70s, when the term being sent to Coventry became a kind of code word to socially isolate individuals within a factory or other industrial work environment. Similar to using projection, in this case the silent treatment, the target very often has no idea what they've done to offend this toxic creature. The silent treatment is often undertaken with the creature's useful idiots and collaborators who have been encouraged to join in. In an office or a school organizational scenario, this can spring from the creature holding some deep resentment or jealousy towards a specific targeted individual, and could be based on little more than this person being more emotionally positive, attractive, socially liked, higher paid, or even someone who's in a happy relationship. These creatures can keep the silent treatment going for years until the target succumbs and accepts responsibility for any fake blame from this creature. Barring the target committing suicide or leaving for good, the creature will ensure the victim target begs them to come for peace talks, where the target will unquestionably acquiesce to all the creature bully demands. This can be a risky game for many creature bullies to play if they implement the silent treatment on a strong-willed or well-liked individual, in case it blows up in their face, leaving them socially isolated instead. Now, if this silent treatment does backfire, the creature will break the ice many times out of the blue with some glib statement about how
this is very silly, you know?
Even though the person on the receiving end of this silent treatment neither implemented nor wanted the silent treatment to happen in the first place. The creature's plan derails, and it is ultimately the creature who has to surrender. Now, as I've covered in other videos, these creatures can be social risk takers. Through their impulsiveness and through their bullying behaviors or their silent treatment games, they fail to grasp the long-term outcome should this target refuse to give in. Usually this ends up with onlookers being amused or repulsed by the retarded or absurdity of the creature as they realize the emperor indeed has no clothes. Likewise, the bullying parent implementing the silent treatment on a child may find they have no children or grandchildren to enable them in later years. Not that they learn from experience. They will simply utter phrases such as,
"My own children abandoned me,"
or,
"I was the team player and they all stabbed me in the back."
Classic psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic victim playing.
I am the Narcopath, and I'm having some technical difficulties.
I know when I first met you, I told you I was a virgin. And I was. It was your fault for going through my papers. That afternoon I trusted you. You went through my things and you found out that
I'd had at least 20 abortions. Well, honey, I told you that was all a mistake. Those are my sisters. Yes, she went to the doctor using my card for insurance because she didn't have any. That'll teach you to look into things that have none of your business in them.
I am a virgin still, even though I am pregnant, but it's immaculate. It was Jesus.
Who is this? I beg your pardon.
Credit card. Honey, I think you've got the wrong number. Do not call this number ever again. These sickening bill collectors. Can't they just leave me alone? Who cares if I borrowed that money? I needed it, but I ain't got it, so I ain't gonna pay it. Quit calling her, you fool. What's gonna take to get rid of these people? Oh my God.
You know, I've changed my number 3 times already, and these fools still seem to find me. What is the deal? Can't a lady just live in peace?
Who cares what she did beforehand?
You'll never be as beautiful as I am.